We're a little over 2 months into Battle for Azeroth, and while a sizable chunk of the community seems to be mired in debate over whether or not this is the greatest expansion in the history of expansions, or if it's a festering pile of dog shit that just cemented Blizzard's status as #1 on gamers' most hated list, I'd like to take a look at one facet of the game that certainly could use a good overhaul: professions. In my opinion, and I'd like to think many share this view, professions are basically meaningless in today's game. I can't remember the last time I put in any effort to one of the crafting professions, and seriously, why would I? Even with Blizzard's redesigning of zones to make leveling a little more impactful, and don't get me wrong, it was a welcome change, the process is ridiculously quick, to the point that any gear of note one can make via blacksmithing, leatherworking, or tailoring is rendered useless and out of date almost immediately upon creation. Chain running dungeons, heirloom gear, and readily available gold to buy more at the auction house have all contributed to a steady decline in importance for what used to be a major component of the game. I've never been much of a gold maker, so even choosing a couple of the gathering professions and calling it a day never did much for me. It got to the point that I completely skipped making my trek to a capital city and learning any of them, both primary and secondary. I remember pouring a lot of resources into forging the Fellsteel Defender back in the day, and I loved it because my main was a tank back then, and that was the best I could do at the time. It also looked pretty cool. I cried tears of joy when the King's Defender dropped for me in Karazhan, and I may have passed out completely for a few minutes from excitement when the Sun Eater dropped in Heroic Mech. That was pretty close to Nirvana for my tanking career. The point is that blacksmithing granted me an opportunity to make something that let me do my job in-game, and that is not possible in today's World of Warcraft. Professions used to be fun. Granted, they were hard at times, but they were engaging and a little tedious, but you always had to keep them on your list of things to stay on top of. If you didn't, you were at a serious disadvantage, especially if you wanted to go on the occasional raid or two. They could even throw a monkey wrench into your questing. Anyone remember the mithril casing needing to help repair poor Amy back in vanilla Ungoro? Only engineers could make them, and if you didn't have the foresight to buy one or have a buddy make one for you, then you would journey deep into the crater, make it through the killer apes waiting to rip your face off, only to discover that to complete the quest you had to leave the area and pray you had enough gold to buy one or get a buddy to make one for you. It was frustrating to say the least, but by God you'd learn to love that engineer. There were also the various enchanting rods you needed to level enchanting, which could only be made by blacksmiths. You had to form friends fast or your progression would suffer the consequences, and let's not forget those transmutes, usually with a limit of only 1 per day. So how do we fix this? Do I want Blizz to roll back the clock and just import WoW's classic profession system into the current game? No, not at all. I ran a quick poll on Twitter the other day, obviously not scientific, but the results were a little surprising. I simply asked how the current dilemma professions could be fixed. 6% said they were fine as is. Not one single person wanted a complete overhaul. The vast majority, 72%, simply wanted items to be relevant again. 72%. Are you listening, Blizz? That's an easy fix. Easy. Here's how I'd go about doing it. 1. You've got to start putting rare or hard-to-find recipes back into the world. Not just in dungeons and raids, and even those are scant these days, but world drops too. It's always a happy surprise to see those drop, especially when you aren't expecting it. Number 2, #MIRA, or make items relevant again. This has been the major knock against professions for a long time. With the rapidity and ease of leveling, any item you can craft and wear is useless by the time you can make it. Or you wear it for a hot minute, then vendor it with the new shiny as given to you by a random NPC. Here's how I'd like to fix this. Since Blizzard isn't going to slow down the leveling process anytime soon, they should tie profession materials into the questing process. This could be a twofold idea. Allow quest rewards to include the option of receiving materials such as cloth, ore, or leather, etc., along with any other items historically tied to that quest. They could also tie a piece or pieces of gear to specific zones, meaning if you complete all or even most of the quests in the specific zone, you're rewarded with a pattern for a piece of gear. You'd also have the opportunity to collect the mats necessary to make the item from the quest rewards, or from the natural farming of mats you'd go through while questing. The item could be the equivalent of a dungeon blue, and could even be part of a set you could complete after leveling through 4 or 5 zones. LFD and LFG has removed the need for gearing towards dungeon runs while leveling, but at least this would give those that don't run a lot of dungeons good gear that would last them for a while. It would also give them ample reason to open their professions panel. Number 3. This one is more psychological, but it's a move that I'd love Blizzard to make. They need to pump the brakes on making everything epic quality. It demeans the word and devalues the effort for the gear. All epic gear should come out of extremely rare world drops, heroic or mythic dungeons, and raids. You should also be able to craft really special pieces, again, helping the importance of professions along the way. I would love to see the first epic anyone equips to be something they made. Maybe from a pattern they received after completing those wonderful zone leveling rewards from sets I discussed a few minutes ago. I wouldn't even want a reduction in stats or power, or roughly maybe 5% per se. Just change the color on those item icons. The fourth thing I'd like to see is a crap ton more fun stuff. How about a recipe pattern that required the handiwork of an enchanter or a tailor, with the end result being able to turn whatever cloak you're wearing into an invisibility cloak? Want a dwarven mortar team that launches fireworks? Talk to a blacksmith and an engineer. How about a leather worker being able to make pet leashes so you could walk around with 5 or 6 of your favorite companions on display? I love the new war mode setting. How about letting anyone with inscription create warrants or bounties for members of the opposing faction? Fun stuff, not game breaking, but viable at any level to keep people interested in what they paid 10 copper for when they hit level 5. These aren't quick fixes. I recognize the implementation would have to come with the launch of the next expansion, but there's no need to recreate the wheel for this. Again, the vast majority of people speaking up just want what they make to matter for a longer period of time. Certainly our gaming overlords at Blizzard can squeeze that into their plan. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and please like and subscribe to my brand new channel. Thanks and have a great one.
Will you take part?